listening to the Content Sales Podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 250. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and my co-host Michelle Falzon is here with me. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hi, Suzi. I am well. Thank you so much. As we record this, we're both just back from spending some time in the beautiful tropical north of Australia.
Oh, it was wonderful. One of my favorite things to do, as you know, Michelle, is to create amazing experiences for members of the Her Business community. And now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you've probably heard us talk about the Reach Retreat, which is a 5-day retreat we run in Hawaii and we've done for several times since 2017. This year, I got inspired to host a new type of retreat, which we called the Growth Retreat in the gorgeous Port Douglas in far north Queensland here in Australia. And it was all about giving women business owners some time away from their business, the main goal of the retreat, but to do this in an inspiring location and to really focus on growth, growing themselves and growing their businesses. And we had some wonderful guest speakers, including 2 of our mastermind members. And Michelle also joined us as a speaker. And it was an incredible 3 days where we focused on 3 specific parts to growth: getting clear on what we want, getting clear on what we sell, getting clear on our marketing mountains, as we call them here at the show, getting seen so that we can be more visible in the world and to our ideal clients. And part 3 was getting momentum. So taking action on these goals and dreams consistently so that they become a reality. And we think that the topic that we're covering here today, there's a real tie-in because during the Growth Retreat and in other events and experiences that Her Business hosts, we get to see the incredible power of community. Creating space for people to connect and find like-minded peers and supporters, which is just my heart's work, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's one of your superpowers as well. And, you know, it's so wonderful when our heart's work lines up with our superpowers to create those kinds of experiences and to build community. And today, we're looking at ways to start creating a powerful community even before people become your customers. That is, how can you build community and connection even in your marketing? And when you can do that, you actually make it so much easier for people to buy from you. You can accelerate the lead time before someone becomes a customer. You can make that shorter. And you can even enlist your paid customer community, those raving fans who really love what you do, to participate in your marketing, community building activities, to provide powerful social proof and to help build trust for those people who are thinking, will I buy from this person or not?
That's so true. And I think it's important to take a moment to define what we mean by community, because it can mean different things to different people. And I know, and you know, Michelle, that we love a good definition and clarity around what it is we're talking about.
Oh, we absolutely do. I think it's a great place to start.
So when we talk about community, we are talking about creating a space where people feel a genuine sense of belonging. It's not a collection of individuals or bodies or a place to sell. It's an environment where people can connect with each other around shared values, interests, or goals. And when you foster that, people start to feel, like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Yes, and that feeling of connection, of belonging to something meaningful is incredibly powerful. When people feel that sense of community, they're more invested emotionally, and that leads to things like deeper loyalty. And in a world where people are bombarded with options and they often feel disconnected, I know I feel very disconnected, from a lot of the people that I buy from or that I see trying to market to me. A community becomes a safe and welcoming space. It's a place where people feel seen, heard, and valued.
Right. And that's why community can be such a game changer for businesses like yours, because when your customers and prospects feel connected to you and to each other, it's no longer just about the product or service. They start to see your brand, your product or service as part of their life, part of their identity. And that makes them far more likely to buy from you, to stick with you, and also to share their positive experiences with others.
And that, Suzi, I think is exactly where the magic happens, what you're saying there. When people feel like they're part of a community, they're not just engaging with you passively, they're actively involved. They want to see the community grow and thrive, which means they're often willing to help spread the word, to bring in new members if it's a membership or something like that you have, and to advocate for you without even being asked. And that's why creating community isn't just a feel-good exercise, it's a really powerful marketing strategy.
It really is, and it really builds trust. And as we talk about this, I want you to know that you don't have to have a lot of people in your world or you need a lot of customers or a lot of followers to build community. It really is about these fundamentals of creating a place where people feel seen and heard and they find others who are like them. Now, people trust recommendations from peers and friends much more than traditional marketing messages. And you can probably, relate to that yourself. When you create a space where people can interact, share experiences and support each other, you're also building layers of trust that no advertising or sales copy can ever replicate.
I 100% agree with you on that, Suzi. And community nurtures a sense of credibility and authenticity as well. It just seems to stack on all the good things. People come for the content or the value that they can see from, signing up for your lead magnet or joining your challenge or whatever it might be. But they stay for the relationships they build. And ultimately, these relationships are what make it easier for them to choose to work with you or buy from you when the time is right. So if you're listening to this and wondering if community could play more of a role in your marketing, I think Suzi and I would say, yes, it can. In fact, we're about to walk you through 5 fast and free ways to start building a powerful community around your product or service, around your brand, even before someone becomes a paying customer.
So let's dive into the first of these 5 fast and free ways to create community in your marketing. And let's start with an easy and effective one that really anybody can try. And that is, number 1, hosting live Q&A sessions. So Q&A, question and answer sessions, are fantastic because they're simple to set up and they can be done on platforms most of us already use. You can do an Instagram Live, you can do a Facebook Live, you can do a LinkedIn Live, you can be on YouTube. And they're a great way to appear authentically as you to your audience. So by inviting people to join you live, you're creating a powerful real-time connection. It's like having an open door where anyone can pop in, they can ask questions, and they can engage with you directly. Now, one of the keys to making Q&A sessions successful is consistency. So, for example, you could set up a regular time each week or month, something like Q&A Fridays or Ask Me Anything Mondays. That way people know that they can rely on this time to ask questions and get answers from you.
I really love this idea, and you're really only limited by your imagination when it comes to the way that you might position your Q&A sessions. For example, let's say you're a business coach helping solopreneurs grow their businesses. You could host a weekly business boost Q&A session, and you can do that on whatever platform or multiple platforms wherever your people are hanging out. And this is where you answer questions about productivity, marketing, or client management. Or let's say you have a skincare business. You could host a weekly or monthly or whatever interval you like glow up Q&A. And here you could answer questions about skincare routines, product ingredients, and seasonal skin concerns. You might theme each session perhaps around a specific topic like acne solutions or anti-aging tips or how to create a skincare routine. And these themes will help attract people to you. Or let's say you're a pet trainer, and we're just trying to give you a few options here so you can start to see how this might work in your world. You could run a pet behavior clinic or an Ask the Expert Q&A, and you could host that on Facebook Live or wherever your audience is hanging out and answer questions coming from the audience about common training issues like leash pulling or barking, or if your dog's got anxiety. And each session could focus on a specific type of pet behavior or a training technique to keep your Q&A really engaging and give it a bit of structure. Maybe an interior designer could offer a design dilemmas Q&A where you answer questions about challenges people in your market might be having with their home decor, or maybe their DIY project has gone wrong and they need some help. Hey, I painted my lounge room orange. What do I do to fix it?
I love all those different examples. And so have a think about what might be a version for your business that your ideal clients would want to show up and get their questions answered from you. And you want to think about where you would host these Q&As. So if you're most active on Facebook and that's where your ideal clients are mostly hanging out, then try a Facebook Live. The same for Instagram or LinkedIn. Or you could even host a Zoom session where you share the link for people to join you on Zoom. It's really up to whatever is easiest for you, and most importantly, what's easiest for the people that you want to attract into your community. The really great thing about Q&A sessions like this is that it helps people get a taste of what it would be like to work with you. They can see your expertise, your brilliance, they can get a sense of your personality, and they can get direct help. all of which builds that sense of trust and connection with you.
Absolutely. This is a wonderful way for people to approximate what it's like to get your valuable help achieve the thing that they're struggling with, whether it's their complexion or their pet or their business or any other topic that you might be an expert in. And a couple of great examples from people that we know include Tina Tower, who is a longtime friend of her business, and she got her business up and running by doing a weekly Ask Me Anything type of session. I think it was on a Friday night, and she'd make a cocktail of the week and settle in to answer people's questions. And then there's Amanda Farmer, one of our amazing masterminders. And Amanda is a strata lawyer. We've mentioned her several times on the show. We've actually had Amanda on the show, and she has the Your Strata Property online membership. She hosts regular Ask Amanda Now live sessions in Facebook. Ask Amanda Now, really personalized. And I just went and looked at one of her most recent Ask Amanda Now sessions, Suzi, and she picks one question from her community and she features it. And the one I just saw was in today's Ask Amanda Now session, Amanda answered Danny's question. And the question was, Amanda, my apartment flooded and the OC, that's some lingo, I'm not quite sure what the OC is, refuses to pay me any more than what the insurer has agreed to pay them. Is this legal? Now, what a great specific question. And Amanda's used that as a jumping off point for her live Ask Amanda Now session.
Oh my gosh, which is so good because it shows her expertise, and anyone who's ever been in that situation or think they may be in that situation is immediately like, oh, who's Amanda? I need to know more. I've done these live Q&As during our annual Business Growth Summit and some of our online challenges, and I let people know in advance that I'm going to be live and that I'll be taking questions, and they can send them in ahead of time, or they can give them to me spontaneously. But usually they'll submit them ahead of time. I'll then come up with which ones I'm going to answer based on what we've received, what I think will serve the most number of people. And I actually really like this Q&A format because I actually don't need to do a whole lot of preparation because it's digging into what I already know ahead of time, and it offers, incredible value. And I know even with our mastermind program, Michelle, we do monthly Q&A calls, and a little bit different, but every one of those Q&A calls is an opportunity for that community, our masterminders, to come together, to get good value from me and Michelle, to connect with each other, to learn from each other's questions. So it breeds more and more connection in the community. Now, a few things that you want to bear in mind as you think about potentially adding a Q&A type of session into the mix with your marketing is the platform. So like I said earlier, go where the most energy and interest is and where you're likely to get some good uptake on your session, and also what feels good to you, because if you choose a platform that you don't like using, it's not going to happen. The other thing is regularity, and I recommend being consistent with how often you host these. And you can experiment with a few options, and it may take a little time to find your stride and the right cadence, but you will. But because of this, maybe don't come out of the gate saying that this is a weekly Q&A, where you might find that it's better if you do it every 2 weeks or every month. And consistency is going to get you traction. And if this is going to be a big part of your strategy, you need to do something like this, say weekly, to build momentum. So consider what regularity is going to be right for you and your audience and the goals that you have for this initiative. Are you going to have one consistent theme, or will you have different topics from session to session? Again, this might be something that you figure out along the way. So it might start off as a general ask me anything about this broader topic that you're an expert in, or you can focus in on themes. So for example, the pet expert that Michelle mentioned earlier, can they ask you anything about pet training, or do you want 1 week to be just about getting your pet to come to you when you call, and another week anything about helping your pet deal with anxiety around other dogs, for example?
Yeah, and there are pros and cons to both of these approaches. A broader Ask Me Anything approach means people can ask you about a specific question they have this week that doesn't have to be relevant to the theme that happens this week. But if you have a theme, you likely increase the chances of people thinking, oh, I have a question about that, I'm going to tune in. So the dog example, if I've got a dog with anxiety and I see on social media that this week you're having a Q&A about anxiety in dogs, then that's going to make me think, oh, this is specifically for me. So just play around with it, like Suzi said. I really agree with what you said about experimenting there, Suzi, for the specific market and the purpose, and also kind of what lights you up as somebody delivering this. And if you're unsure, I would recommend giving the session a broad name overall, and then you have the flexibility from week to week to say, oh, and we're doing a special theme Q&A this week on pet anxiety, even if the rest of the weeks are more general Q&A. And then you can just see what gets traction. It doesn't have to be perfect right out of the gate. And I would suggest doing as much as you can to promote and let people know about the session. And Suzi, you mentioned this as well. You don't want it to be crickets when you get on your live, although that can happen. And I suggest just keep on doing it for a few sessions because it'll start to get some traction, or it won't and you can decide not to continue doing it. But you definitely want to have a few talking points up your sleeve when you first go live, and maybe even some typical questions if you haven't had any submitted ahead of time that you can just ask yourself to get the ball rolling. And we've done this, Suzi, on some of our things, just to get things started while people join you and think about a question and type it in the chat, etc. So you might say, hey, one of the biggest questions I always get asked when it comes to helping an anxious pet is blah, 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 blah. And then you go about answering it. And while you're answering it, you say, now, if you've got a question, go ahead and type it. I'll be answering that question. I'll be looking in the comment section or the chat box or wherever, on whatever platform you are, to encourage those posts and those questions.
And I do recommend that when you do get someone tuning in, whether it's one person or 100 or 1,000, that you actually engage with your viewers or listeners, or both as it might be. So take a moment to greet people as they join, especially in the first bit, using names where you can, responding in real time. And this makes the experience feel personal and interactive. You may also need to encourage people to type their questions in a comment box, maybe multiple times throughout the session, because, things can get hidden as the comments go. And people can be shy. So if you've got viewers, but no one is posting a question, do what you can to normalize the process of asking and encouraging them to post. You could also encourage questions in advance. And so before going live, you can ask people to submit questions, and you can let them know that it can be anonymous. Some people are prefer things that way. And this allows you to prepare thoughtful answers, especially for more complex questions. And it really ensures that you have questions to kick the session off with. And that's what we do with our Q&A calls with Mastermind. Our Masterminds get the opportunity to give the questions in advance so that Michelle and I will give them as much value as possible in the time that we have, because we have a heads up. Plus, anyone who submits a question is far more likely to come along because you're going to be answering their question.
Great point. And you also want to think about how you're going to answer these questions. So remember, this is marketing content. We still want to be strategic here. So one big mistake is to go off on a long, convoluted tangent where you feel you have to explain everything about a specific question that somebody has asked you. And you want to avoid doing that, in my opinion, unless you have a highly technical or advanced audience, like maybe you've got a group of scientists or specialists that you need to go deep on something with. But most people need your most compelling, simplified, succinct answer. That's actually how you'll build credibility, not telling them the 50,000 other things that you know. Don't overdo it. And this is also your opportunity to seed how they can get deeper responses from you by buying your next thing. So you give them the succinct, simplified, important first step that you get them to do, and then you can seed an opportunity for them to learn more about that. So, for example, Amanda Farmer, who I just mentioned earlier from your strata property, often seeds her paid membership when giving answers in her Ask Amanda Now segment. Like, for example, she could say, so this flooding issue, so we've just covered a deep section on that inside my paid membership, Your Strata Property, and I've actually given my members a template on how to go to the insurance company with this and a cover letter, etc. And now I can't go into all the details of that right now, but let me give you the main points that you want to know about. And then you deliver those 3 main points or that really interesting thing that's going to help that person. Now, what's happened? They know the answer, the succinct answer. They know that you know what you're talking about. They've been helped, but they also know if they want, they can get the template and all the other resources that go with it by figuring out what is this membership that she's talking about. And we've got an entire episode that educates you on how to seed your offers in your content marketing. And that's episode 57. That's a while back now, but still as evergreen as ever. And it's how to use seeding to move people forward with your content. And we'll give you a link to that in today's show notes. So you want to avoid long-winded responses another reason is you want to get through multiple questions if you have them. So if you get 6 or 7 questions, you want to get all of those answered in the time. So keep the answers short and snappy as well, and it'll keep people more engaged.
And this episode is about creating community in your marketing, right? Not just showing up for people. And so really think about who is on at the time, and is there a way for you to connect them or have them relate to each other, or cross-reference, someone's question with someone's answer, or allow them to also pipe in if they have an answer. So that is all part of creating that community. And I know that we used to have a session called Ask Suzi Anything, and we used to have a landing page that people went to, they submitted the question, we would then send an email out, they'd show up, and part of the things that I like to do was to, one, mention the person who asked the question, seed women in our network who are facing the same thing and maybe how they got support inside of the network in order to resolve that, but also really looking at who's there and inviting them to help. If you have experience in this area, well, and maybe our situation is a little different because we're a community of women business owners. So there's going to be experts in all sorts of areas that can pipe in on an answer. So yeah, thinking about the community aspect of it. Now, if live Q&A sessions don't work for you, you could consider a weekly or monthly Ask Me Anything thread on social media. Now, this way people can still post their questions and you can answer them at a time that suits you. It's almost like recreating the feel of a live session without needing to be there in real time. And the beauty of both approaches, both live Q&As and threads, is that they keep you responsive to your community's needs and interests while showing prospects the kind of value you offer. So it's something great that you could do inside of a group. We'll talk more about groups in a moment. So that's the first of the fast and free ways to add community to your marketing, and that is the idea of these Q&As. So let's have a look at our next idea for you, and that is creating a private Facebook or LinkedIn group. Now, these online groups are free and relatively quick and easy to set up, although maintaining these groups so that they get traction and interaction will be a commitment of time from you and perhaps people on your team on a regular basis. So a private group gives people a focused space to connect. And I find that in our groups, like the Her Business Network Facebook group or the group we set up for the recent growth retreat, we were talking about earlier in the show, it creates a platform when members of the group can really dive into meaningful conversations because they know they're in a community of like-minded people. And while those groups I just mentioned, both the Growth Retreat group and the Her Business Network Facebook group are for paying clients, we do have and have had free groups, and you can have a free group for people who are not necessarily paying clients. So for the longest time, for years and years, over 6 years, we had a free Her Business Facebook group for non-members. And we provided free resources, opportunities for them to promote their products and services every week, and a place where we could talk about our upcoming membership offerings or free webinars we were running. And we only just 2 weeks ago closed this group. Now, this group has almost 8,000 women in it. So you might think, oh, well, that sounds a bit crazy, but I want to explain why we did it. So the reason that we started it was we were actually doing a business growth summit. We needed somewhere for people to interact for that community, and we started a group. And then it was fabulous, right? People who were doing the summit were all participating. Then when the summit closed, rather than let those beautiful people go, we thought, look, we'll just make this a general Her Business community group and people can continue to network. And over the years, people would join the group every week. We would have new people join the group. And it took a level of management. Some of the great things that came out of it was there was one more place for us to promote our things and seed our offers. There were some people who moved across from being in the free group to actually then buying from us. But ultimately, I made the decision to close the group because as we are looking at planning our next year and we're deciding on what the best use of our resources, and part of that is our team, is that wasn't one of them. There were other things that we can be doing to support women to get into our paid network where we can really make a difference. Things like this podcast or the Her Business podcast, the free webinars we run throughout the year that were a better use of our resources and had a better conversion activity than having a free Facebook group. So people were like, oh my gosh, there's 7,000 people. How can you let that go? That's how I can let it go. I'm very clear that that is not the best place for me to serve people. because we want to focus on the women who are truly committed to growing their businesses. And we can do that inside of a smaller, more intimate community where they can get more hands-on support.
That is such a great example of the whole life cycle of a free community right there, Susie. Starting it now, it was so great to start with, and where it had its conversion job inside your business, and then when it stopped having it, how you were able to recognize that and move on. And you've demonstrated something that I think is really important for our listeners, and that is you don't have to keep doing a specific community-based marketing strategy if it no longer serves you or fits in with where you're headed. So if you're thinking about starting a private group, that's one of our tips for one of our fast and free ways for creating community in your marketing. It can be a brilliant way to make your audience feel special and like they are overtly joining a community. And that may be the place where you can really get people to know, like, and trust you and move them into buying from you. Because when people join, they feel like they're entering this exclusive space where they're part of something valuable. And once you have people in your group, you want to make sure you're giving them a reason to stay engaged. And this is where the time-consuming part can come into play. We've actually got a couple of entire episodes, of course we do, dedicated to effectively managing a Facebook group. And we'll put the links to those in the show notes today, but I'll just mention the three of them in particular right now. Episode 84 was an interview we did with Kate Toon, all about Facebook group engagement. Episode 152 is how to get people from your free Facebook group to your paid offer. And that's an absolutely important thing you want to be doing if you do decide to start a free group, is have a plan for that. And episode 193 is Facebook groups, the essential systems and processes for success. And Suzi shares some absolute gold in that episode about a lot of her processes as well. And there are several others on community and Facebook, which we'll put in the show notes for you today. So I definitely recommend you check those out if you're planning to build a free community via an online group. And from a marketing perspective, a private group allows you to stay top of mind with your audience and to give them ongoing value that nurtures them closer to becoming clients. So those people that joined Suzi's summit, that she didn't close that group at the end, she kind of moved it forward and she was able to keep communicating with them and to keep nurturing them. The big thing is to make sure you're treating your free online group like a window onto your paid services. So you want to have people be able to see through that free group into all the stuff that's on the other side in the community once they start paying you. So you want to feature your paid customers, which is what Suzi said she did. You want to promote your paid services in that group. You want to share behind the scenes of what's happening in your paid services, like sharing pictures of the growth retreat. If Suzi still had her free group available, you'd be doing that, right?
Absolutely.
So let's say you're a nutritionist. You could create a private group for women interested in learning more about healthy eating. And each week you might post tips and recipe ideas and conversation starters around health and wellness and getting them to engage. And then you could use that group to also feature your paid client success stories. Let them know about an upcoming paid course or classes that you have available. Or maybe you've got a couple of sessions opened up in your calendar. You could just post in the group and say, hey, I've been booked out, but I just happen to have 2 spaces available next week. Does anybody want them? And this is something that our masterminder, Fiona Keary of Style Liberation, does so well. And we've mentioned Fiona several times on the show. Her free Facebook community, which Suzi and I love and recommend you just join anyway, is called 35 Plus Where to Shop. And it is a great example of using community as a marketing strategy, cultivating people interested in buying her membership. She sells color consults. She has online courses, and all of those people are there and present inside of her free group. And they fall in love with Fiona. They fall in love with the other women. Other women chime in and answer their posts and their questions. And they think, wow, I want to be a part of this. So when Fiona does a webinar or she has some marketing activity, they're more likely to engage and then they're more likely to buy.
Yeah, and Fiona does a brilliant job of that. And I know because we've had this conversation with her, when you've got a free group, it can feel like, I just keep giving value and value and, things will turn out my way. But we do have to be absolutely deliberate in asking people to buy, in taking them behind the scenes of our paid offers, but also saying, and hey, we now have spots available. or, hey, the course starts next week, because your time is too valuable to be spending on a free community. Unless it is for your marketing, it's actually marketing your business. And as I said, Fiona does a great job. It is a time commitment, and like you said, and you really do need to devote time to it to stop it from being a ghost town. And you definitely do not want to let the group become a dumping ground for other people's promotions. And maybe you've seen groups like that. That's not going to serve your marketing. You need people to clearly see you as the expert and to build rapport with you and your brand above all else. And you want to ensure the focus is on genuine conversation and value to keep the members engaged, because they come there for a reason, and you want to make sure that that reason is being served. So now we want to share our third fast and free idea for building more community into your marketing. And this is one of my favorites. And Michelle, I know it's one of your favorites too. And that is number 3, running polls or surveys. Now, polls and surveys are simple, but they're really powerful ways to involve your community in so many ways, as we'll talk about. And you can use Instagram stories to run polls, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can run them directly in your private group. We've done that many times. And what I love about polls is that they're quick and easy for people to respond to, if done correctly, right? They don't require a big time investment. They're simply clicking a button or giving you a few words, but they still help people feel very involved. So to make this work well, you want to try and focus your polls or surveys on questions relevant to your audience. So, for example, asking topics they're interested in learning more about, or their biggest challenges in a particular area, or even lighthearted questions that can get them talking, like, what's the one productivity tool that you can't live without? Now, some of these most effective kinds of polls and surveys we've done include things like saying, when it comes to growing a profitable network, what has been your biggest challenge, problem, or frustration? Another one was, when I say networking, you say, and we got all these wonderful words that we can then use to talk about whether they loved or hated networking. We could then use in our marketing to say, well, we're not that kind of network, or we're the network you're not going to hate, or feel cringy about. Another one we did, because we like to help women grow 6- and 7-figure businesses. And so one of the polls we did was, when it comes to growing a 6- or 7-figure business, like, what's been your biggest stuck point, or your biggest challenge, or your biggest frustration? And again, people were just so generous in giving us responses. Now, sometimes we allow them to respond right there in, say, the free group, but sometimes we'll send them to a form. But one thing we do is we come back into the community and share the results. And that becomes, again, beneficial. It also builds community. People go, oh, people think like me, or people are experiencing the same frustrations when it comes to growing their 6-figure business, etc. So you want to have some level of transparency to bring in that creating community element for your marketing that we're talking about in this episode.
Yeah, and I would say with polls and surveys, a few top tips are that you want to make it easy to answer. So the quicker it is to respond, the more people will participate. So, those examples Suzi gave you were just great. Like, oh my gosh, I can answer that question about how I feel about networking. When I say networking, you say uncomfortable, let me find the door, or opportunity, however people are feeling. You make it really easy to answer. And even if it is a more detailed survey, you don't want too many questions. Like, I've seen people give their audience 60 question surveys to fill in. You know what I mean? You really just want somewhere between 5 to 12 questions is a good number if you're doing an in-depth survey. And sometimes you can just have a 1-question survey. And we've got a great interview with Ryan Levesque, who really pioneered a 1-question survey and lots of other ways to poll and survey your audience. And that's episode 31, how to use surveys to discover exactly what your customers want and how to give it to them, with Ryan Levesque. And we'll share a link to that in the show notes. You want a mix of open-ended and multiple choice questions. That is, some questions where I can just type in free form my answer so you get my real language, and other questions where I can just tick which of the 3 or 4 answer responses is the one most similar to my preference or how I think and feel. So the first is make it easy to answer, make it hooky and easy to even know I want to participate. The second is follow up on responses. Show that you're listening by acknowledging responses and acting on the feedback wherever possible. For instance, if many people say they want more content about productivity, create a post or a live session addressing that topic and say, hey, I just ran a survey and overwhelmingly what people said they wanted to know more about was productivity. And so I want to share with you my best productivity tip right now. So that's that transparency that Suzi was talking about. And you want to use the polls to shape your content. So you can publish the results as content. So you might actually even say, hey, we ran a poll and 67% of people said this was their biggest issue. Or, we ran a survey and here was the 5 big insights or whatever you might. So they get that information fed back. So they see as a community how what they said kind of fits in with what the community they're inside of said. But you can also, like Suzi was so clever, getting customer language and ideas for lead magnets or emails or future videos and things that she might post. So, for example, let's say you run a skincare line. You could use Instagram stories, if that's where your people are buying from you, to poll your audience on their biggest skin concerns. Like some might say acne, some might say dryness, some might say wrinkles. And based on the feedback, you could create posts or videos sharing tips or highlighting products that address these
Can you
concerns.
give more than one answer in that poll?
Yeah, I just want we all of the above. I want to know all the things. Yeah, exactly. It's making me think of Loretta Brandolini, one of our masterminders, and she would be this. She has such a great product range. I want to buy everything in her range. But she'd be great at doing something like this. And I know she does do some things like this. So definitely check her out, Reluminate Beauty. And a go-to move that both Suzi and I have used when it comes to polls and surveys, we just want to share this as like a next level tip. And it's so good at creating community and getting those people to move forward en masse to the next step offer that you want to take. And here's how it works. You run the survey before you've completed whatever the activity is that you've got people engaged in. It might be a paid course or it might be a free challenge or whatever it is. You run the survey a week before that ends. And then on the final week, you present those survey results back to your audience and you explain their top 5 challenges and what the audience told you, what the community told you, and then you position the thing you're offering as the solution for all of that. So let me give you an example because it makes more sense when you can hear it in a real life scenario. So we haven't run this for some time, but Suzi and I used to run a course called Content Cells. It was a paid course. It ran for 4 weeks. And week 3, we sent a survey asking what ongoing support do you see that you need beyond the course? And we got some fantastic responses. And then in week 4, we invited people to stay for some extra time after the final course session so we could share those results with the community and offer some next steps. So using the survey results, we were able to segue into offering our mastermind. So we were able to position the mastermind as exactly what they wanted. For example, 66% of people doing the Content Cells course said they wanted help with accountability. So now we can say, we get it. We do these courses. We think it's great. We get all these great ideas. And then the course ends and life happens and we never go back to it. And that's why inside the mastermind, we've built in these weekly check-ins and these monthly Q&As and these 90-day, 2-day programs where you can really get that accountability. So you can speak to the pain of not having the thing and then show how your product or service delivers on it. And it is such a cool move.
Absolutely love it. And I love it because a survey like this, it gives you immediate feedback on what your community wants and what they're struggling with. And it helps you tailor your content or your marketing or your offers accordingly. Plus it makes people feel valued when they know that their opinion is shaping the future of your content or products that you're designing specifically for them. It's a great way to gather insights, as Michelle mentioned, for your marketing and actually get client language while strengthening the connection with your audience and joining the dots between what they said they wanted and what you're offering. So here we are, and we've given you 3 ideas so far in this free and fast, furious ways I just said furious. Ways to create community. Number one is hosting a live Q&A sessions. Number two was creating a private group. Number three was running polls or surveys. And our fourth suggestion, and we have 5 in total, is encouraging user-generated content. Now, user-generated content is brilliant because it allows your community to take part in creating the story around your brand. It's such a valuable form of social proof. And when others see people posting about their experiences with your brand, it builds trust and credibility, which really helps you make more sales.
Absolutely. And user-generated content can take many forms. And we are by no means going to give you all the forms here on this show today, but just as an example, you might invite your audience, your community, to share photos or videos or testimonials, like that pet trainer example. You could say, okay, everybody post a picture of your pet. Now, who is not going to love that? And who's not going to feel part of a pet lovers community when you can see all these other people like you who love their animals? And let's say you're a fitness coach. You could encourage people to post photos of their exercise space or their favorite exercise gear, or to chime in and let you know what their commitment is to exercise on a specific day of the week. Like you might have a workout Wednesday where you post with a specific hashtag and say, okay, everybody share with us now what your commitment is to post to exercise on today. And I say, well, I'm doing 30 minutes of legs, or I'm doing a whole body workout, or I'm doing, a 1 hour cycle, or whatever it is. And so this is actually content that you can use to put snapshots of those posts into an email, or to make a little video, or to use as a springboard into creating a product when you start to notice that everybody's doing yoga. And so you don't have a yoga product, so you're going to go and build that. And then you could feature a montage of different images or comments in future posts and emails to show that you've got this active community, lovely faces of people posting in your group or wherever you might ask them to post. And by getting people who may not yet be your clients to engage, you increase the chance they will become your clients. And it's a great way to stay in touch with current or past clients as well and get them to buy from you again. And you could also feature different members, celebrate their progress, create a supportive and inspiring atmosphere along the way.
We love doing that, and we spotlight a member of the Her Business community every week inside of our newsletter, and we then map that across to our social media channels. And those member spotlights are actually based on user-generated content. So content that members submit that we then take and we, reword or format in different ways for the different uses. But you can also encourage user-generated content by creating a specific hashtag or giving your audience a prompt like share your favorite business book. Now, when other people see their contributions being recognized or even featured on your platform, it shows that you appreciate them, and they're more likely to share again in the future and to pay attention to other content marketing, that you might be doing. Now, another thing that makes user-generated content so powerful is that it's authentic. It's your community sharing real experiences, which potential clients will find more trustworthy than traditional marketing, especially if it sounds anything like marketing blah, blah.
All right. And I just want to kind of really reiterate that point you're making. One big tip is don't make it all about your product or service. Don't make people say why I love Her Business or why I love your pet training. That's not what we're looking for. We want to encourage people, and this is the real golden nugget when it comes to user-generated content. You want to encourage people to share how your brand fits into their lives to create genuine engagement. People want to share about their own lives and what they're doing and how they're getting fit, or what their dog looks like, or what their office setup looks like. They don't necessarily want to just speak about you and your brand. So if you help people with their office setup, then invite them to share their office setup. That's the thing they want to tell you about.
Yeah, it's not about your agenda, and it is a bit of a balancing act. And so we go from really broad, lighthearted, user-generated kind of like, share a GIF at the end of the week that explains how your week was, to more specific content like, inviting people to share a photo of themselves with our book club book. So this is something that we love doing for our members 2 to 3 times a year. Our Her Business Network members receive a book that I've chosen that is all about helping them grow their business. And we end up with these wonderful images of members holding the book, which we consolidate into montages. We share them with the authors, who are always super thrilled. And we use that as content that we share with our wider community of non-members to show some of the great things that are inside of the network.
So good. And this is all user-generated content. Somebody took that photo and posted it, and then now you can use it to show good things about your business and use it to make more effective marketing. And somebody who's so good at this is somebody we both know, Susan Garrett, and she does happen to be a world-class dog trainer. We've been speaking about pet trainers as an example on today's show. She's someone we've had on the show before. She's a master at creating community, and I'll definitely make sure we put the link to that in our show notes today, that episode with her. But she has a great strategy for user-generated content, and she gets people to submit a video of themselves training their dog using her methodology. Remember, they want to show you training their dog and how they're doing it, but it's using her methodology that she teaches.
Right.
And you submit this video for the chance to win a prize. So it's a competition, and the way you enter, right? And she gets thousands of submissions because she has a very, very large community. But even if you have a small community, this could work for you. And it's showing the extent that people will go to in certain situations to create content and engage in your community. And it's also such brilliant content because now she's got all this social proof of literally thousands of people training their dogs using her methodology.
And so definitely check out that episode. She was such a great guest. We want to move on to our fifth and our final idea for you, and that is number 5, create a challenge. So while this idea is free, it can involve a few bells and whistles, but when done well, challenges can be so effective. They create a shared experience and give people something to really rally around. And they enable you to give people a quick win and to work with you in a concentrated way to see what it's like to be a client of yours. So it approximates working with you, but they only get you for a little while, just while the challenge is on. And challenges can be great for building momentum in your community. You could run a theme challenge, like a 5-day productivity challenge or a week-long wellness challenge, depending on what it is that aligns with your brand and your clients' needs. Now, during that challenge, you want to encourage participants to share their progress or to post updates. Now, not only will this drive engagement, but also creates a sense of accomplishment. And to make it really work, you can guide people through each step of the challenge with daily prompts and short check-ins. And this kind of structured interaction helps your challenge participants stay motivated, and it reinforces that feeling of community. We're all doing this together. And it's powerful because by the end, people feel a sense of achievement and they associate that success with your brand. They remember what a great experience they had with you and the people you brought around you. And we've actually got a whole episode dedicated to creating your first online challenge. And that's episode 109, How to Create Your First Online Challenge. What a great name.
We like to just tell it like it is. And, we love this topic so much. We actually made a part 2 of it as well. So that's episode 112 and very creatively named How to Create Your First Online Challenge Part 2.
Part 2. I love it.
And we'll put links to both these episodes in the show notes for today. They're going to be juicy show notes today, so do check those out. And we'll tell you a bit later how to get that link. And I agree, Suzi, a challenge is an excellent way to introduce people to your methods or your approach. They get a mini taster of working with you, which builds that familiarity and can turn interest into action. That's why I like challenges so much. They get people taking action, and hopefully they keep taking action then to take that next step of buying from you. And a great example of this is another guest we've had on the show, and a client of mine, somebody that I know we both love, Marisa Murgatroyd. She runs a profitable product idea challenge. Now, the first part in a series of steps she teaches in her paid program, which is the Experience Product Masterclass, where she teaches people how to launch their own online course. The very first sort of step in that is to come up with their course idea. And so she takes 5 days in the Profitable Product Idea Challenge to help people come up with their course idea. Now, in that process, she helps them figure out who their ideal client is and what their niche is and what their unique sort of skill sets are. So there's some really good things she's showing them. And at the end of that 5 days, they not only know their niche and who their ideal client is and what their course is about, they've had this great sense of progress, but they're incomplete. Now, what do they want? They want to learn how to create that course that they've just got this brilliant idea around and they've got so excited about in the challenge. So the challenge is this lovely hand and glove fit with what she then wants to offer. So you can see how building that community through the marketing exercise of the challenge absolutely pays off then when she offers them the next step, which is, okay, now you know your course idea, come and join me in the Experience Product Masterclass and I'll help you build out the whole course. And she's put a lot of deposits into the emotional bank account, into the trust bank account of her community. So there's some deep reciprocity there. Her audience, her community is going to be much more open and receptive to hearing her offer to join her in that next Experience Product Masterclass paid program.
Yeah, I love it. So there you have all 5 of our free and fast ways to create community in your marketing. I wanted to say fast and furious again, but I
think we should just rename this episode.
We should just rename the episode. Number 1, hosting live Q&A sessions. Number 2, creating a private Facebook or LinkedIn group. Number 3, running polls or surveys. Number 4, encouraging user-generated content. And number 5, create a challenge. And with each of these ideas, you're creating opportunities for people to connect and engage, all while building the kind of trust and loyalty that turns community members into clients. Now, we mentioned many, many episodes and resources in today's show, and we're going to include links to those in our show notes. So stay tuned for that special link, which I'll share with you in just a moment. But first, I want to share a comment from one of our listeners. We have over 100 5-star reviews for the show. And so thank you to everyone who's left us a review. If you enjoyed this episode, if you are taking something away, we would love it if you would take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. And today's comment comes from Kristen Arnold. She listened to an episode, which is actually a much loved one. We actually had quite a few comments, and it was the 5 metrics to track your sales funnel success. Now, that was just a few episodes ago, and Michelle had posted a link to that episode on her story on Instagram, and Kristen said, oh, I need this. And so, Kristen, we want to follow up and see how the episode helped you. So thank you so much. And as I said, we would love a comment or review. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. I believe you can also do it on Spotify, or you can just, find us on Facebook, look for Content Sales Podcast and send us a message there. So anything we mentioned here on the show can be found in today's show notes. We've put them over at herbusiness.com/fast free community, herbusiness.com/fast free community. Michelle, tell us what we've got coming up in the next episode. It's a goodie.
It is a goodie. I really like it because it's so different to what we've been posting about. And yet we talk to our masterminders about this all the time, but it's a type of content that you might not realize is a form of content marketing. And that is proposals. So if you're someone who makes proposals to clients, perhaps you sell high value products and services like solar installations or high-end leadership consulting or interior design services or custom software development and so on, you're likely somebody who has to put all of that down on paper and put it into a proposal format and then get that proposal signed off. And if that's you, you definitely want to tune into the next episode, because just like there's a formula for a winning webinar or a winning sales video or a sales page, there's also a winning formula for sales proposals. And most businesses are getting this wrong. We're going to take you through our best advice to up-level your proposals and win more of the projects, more of the time. And we both want to say, even if you don't sell via proposal, you might go, oh, I don't do that. You still want to tune in, because the tips we're sharing can be mapped over to sales conversations and other parts of your marketing. So definitely tune in for that.
That is coming up 2 weeks from now. So go ahead and hit subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast app to get that episode. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
I think we've left it all on the field, Suzi. We've given all our best tips today, except I want to know, Fast and Furious, that has like 9 sequels. Are we going to do 9 sequels to today's show? I'm not sure.
Probably. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time here on the Content Sales Podcast. Bye for now.